Now, how did I do that? This is just like doing its own thing. Nope. All right. You good? Check. Mike's good? Hello, everyone. Welcome to spring, finally. Took a while to get here. I expected better from the weather in Georgia. I'm just put that out there. I really did. Feel like I got bamboozled a little bit about this weather. Yeah, they really did. All right, so we are going to kind of dive right into some stuff. We'll review guiding principles again. So if you were at the February meeting, we did a big one. We did some practice, and today is like you're going to do some real development of guiding principles just around buildings. Next month, we're going to do the exact same thing around programs, and in May, we're going to do the exact same thing around boundaries. We'll review a little bit of how the timeline's going to work, and I have a few updates for you guys as well. This clicker and me are not happy. All right, someone read this for me.
The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Steve Jobs.
No one had any clue what Apple was going to be until Steve Jobs decided we're going to know what Apple's going to be. We just talked, I had another conversation. I've had this conversation often, like, is anything really going to change after this? Is DeKalb really going to do anything after this? Are the board members really going to vote for this, right? Unless we put it out there, we will never know, right? And so I'm hopeful, and I go to board members' events. I'm going to be in front of them monthly at the board meetings. Intentionally, right? So they can start asking questions, so they can start pushing out the work that we're doing to their constituents. I will tell you, we do have a superintendent who's ready for change. So I was at a meeting this month and someone asked so DeKalb is always talking about like things need to change. So it's not an anomaly. It's not that people don't know they need to change. So what is the issue? What is like not driving the change? And in my brain, like it takes the right superintendent, the right board, and community trust. And if you don't have all three of those things, you can have the board and superintendent ready and the community push back and everything stops, right? You can have the community ready, but a superintendent that doesn't want to drive it, it's never going to get to the board, right? Those three entities have to be in unison in order for the change to move. I think this process is going to help with the community trust part because we are being very transparent with everything we're doing. I will tell you, we have the superintendent that's ready for it, and I do believe that there are board members who are willing to hear it. So hopefully that trifecta is going to push some of this work that we're doing into action. So a few updates. The student assignment survey is finally closed. We did get a little more traction on the back end by going to certain communities to just push some survey information just from different demographics, so we have enough to look at. So Kayla is analyzing all of that for us along with our assessment department, so we'll be able to bring that to us so we can start looking at that information, and that's going to be your community and family kind of directly from them data, right? That's I call kind of anecdotal stuff that we can use in the as we think through reimagining. Talking a little bit about the Idlewood piece. So there are things that we have been doing in operations for East Blos that were moving before SAP began. And so I kind of insert myself just to make sure there is a community process connected to it. So Idlewood is getting a renovation to their building. They have a ridiculous amount of modular units in the back of their building. The space is a little bit tight, but they have been on the list from, I believe, 2022. So it's finally happening. In order for it to happen, we need like half of that population out of that school, like 400 kids. Smoke Rise was built and no redistricting happened. So Smoke Rise is half empty, and they have 500 open seats. Idlewood is not directly in the next boundary next to Smoke Rise, but they are all in the Tucker cluster. So I worked with the operations team as they kind of did their redistricting process, and I just kind of inserted myself like, hey, question, hey, can we ask this thing? Hey, should we do this too? And so it's technically not a part of our process yet, but the map will look different next year because there's a small chunk of Idlewood that is on the furthest end, ironically, of the boundary that's going to move to Smoke Rise until this process is done. because that whole boundary, we need to look at all those elementary schools because you got some overcrowded and some undercrowded. So we got to balance that area in general.
Is it appropriate for you to talk about what happened at the school board meeting, the last school board meeting, with the discussion
Around Idaho.
and Drew Hills?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's public, so I mean, so there was a conversation about the Idaho piece, which, you know, again, that kind of went through a pretty quick process, if I'm being frank, right? Like it, I believe, came to the board in January or maybe February. Maybe it was voted in February, January. There was some work done in the community before that, specifically with Idawood, and then Smoke Rise was like, hey, what about us? So then there was a community meeting with Smoke Rise. It was voted on in February. It's moving by next school year because the work has to start in the summer. We are also, this operations is also kind of running a simultaneous process for Druid Hills High School. If you didn't know, like Druid Hills High School was in the news last year. And so that kicked up a fuss with the board to say like, hey, we got to do something about this. It is our oldest building in the district. It is very, very old, like original kind of old. But they have some renovations in some parts of the building. It's a very tight space. It is on a land that has like 7 different elevations. Like Georgia has this thing of like, you look in the front and then you look in the back and it's a whole different house. Yeah. Okay, so Druid Hills is kind of like that. I was like, oh, there's a whole like backside and it goes down, cool. It's like a 30-foot drop. Like it's bizarre to me, I'm learning. And so they were approved for a $50 million renovation, update. Renovation, not renovation, what's the word I'm thinking of? Modernization. So the modernization at the state level has very strict guidelines on what a modernization is. These are your lights, your pipes, your, you know, the paint, bathroom, like stuff, you know, cosmetic almost in a sense. So you're not like moving walls, you're not like building, you know, extra space, like none of that really is around modernization. Druid Hills High School has a special challenge with, again, the space, because no emergency vehicles at this point today can get around that building and turn around and get out. So if there's a fire in the back of the building, for instance, we're gonna have a problem. Trash, like dumpsters can't get around, so they're like taking things through the school. It's not a great situation. So a board member kind of, or one board member said like, hey, like, can we talk about this? Because you're talking about $50 million, but really it's gonna cost $80 million to just do the modernization. And then that community pushed pretty heavily on like, we only have, if you do this modernization for 1,200 kids, we currently have 1,400 in the building, making it work, but currently have 1,400 and is projected to have 1,600 if this boundary doesn't change. Like, why would we build a building for 1,200? Why don't we do it for 16? And they're like, well, there's a financial cost to that. So they looked at it for 1,600, and that's $120 million. And if you just, and then the conversation came up at that meeting again, and they're like, well, why don't we just move? Like, why are we even here? That's $200,000+. 200, thank you, 200 million. So you went from 50 million, which is what they have technically. With inflation, it's now 80 million. If you add it for the number of students based on the current boundary line, that is not to say that the boundary line has to stay the same, but for the current boundary line, that's already 120 million plus. And then if you switch schools or move it, that's you starting a new school is 200 million plus, right? And so the conversation at the board level between the board members who represent those spaces was, so Idlewood didn't get all this attention. Idlewood didn't get, like, we want to push back. Idlewood didn't get 3 months of meetings. So where's the equity in that? That was the conversation. And then another board member essentially was like, well, Druid Hills kind of got that because that's what they asked for. And then that just opened up, as one could imagine, opened up a lot of conversation about how do you do this process and do it well. So again, I lay that caveat that this is not how SAP would have done it. Like, that's not my process necessarily. We did kind of insert ourselves just because I'm learning how the ways of the district work. But ours is a little more consistent. Like, whatever we do for this community, we're gonna do for that community, right? If we have 5 meetings here, we're gonna have 5 meetings over there.
That's
Yeah.
what the problem is. You're just doing stuff for certain communities while everybody else, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it, the Southeast and Southwest has been suffering for years.
There has to be some kind of consistency in how we deliver that. And not looking at it in these tiny little spaces. Got to look at the bigger picture. So yes, the board meetings are interesting. I will say that I'm seeing board members in different roles now, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, good to know. So yeah, they're gonna fight for their people. So that's nice to know. But I think to your point, how we deliver this information and how they receive it, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out at the board level.
I have a question because I did not attend the meeting, but I did read about it. And so I know that there are other school locations that they are considering moving Druid Hills to, and one of them being the school that my child attends.
Yeah, so that was another thing, not really best practices. You don't mention another school without talking to that school, right? And it is in the very, very primary stages of is it even possible? And the only reason DSA and DAA came up is because there is a conversation about merging those buildings or merging those programs into a K-12 arts thing. That has been at the board level for a long time, asking us to look at it. So if you did, then that leaves some opportunity for one or the other. That's honestly the only reason I think those were even considered, and it's in the boundary technically. And then the middle school was considered because it used to be the high school and somebody decided way back when to switch them. I don't understand, but at some point, the current Druid Hill Middle School used to be Druid Hills High School. Very strange. There's been some interesting things happening here in DeKalb. I don't have a lot of rationale as to why things happened in DeKalb, but there's been some interesting things. So those are the only reasons those were mentioned, and again, it's in the boundary. So yeah, follow the board meetings. Yeah, good point. Y'all should, at least if you just look online, they're very long. They are very, very long. But the operations section is when they typically talk about the programs, or excuse me, the buildings and any kind of moving. So if you watch nothing else, that operations section is always interesting. So we are sending out some information this month to say, hey, we've missed you, where you been? And if you're not coming, we're gonna give up your seat. So those emails and text messages are going out this month, and then we will be kind of looking back at the original list of people who applied to say, we know you didn't make the first round, we'd love to have you if you're still interested, and over the summer we'll be doing an onboarding. So I will be taking them through, here's what the committee has done, here's all kind of your homework, here's all of our slide decks that we looked at. They'll get access to whatever group they're in, the Google Drive, and then I'll kind of do the onboarding over the summer, and then they will join in the fall. So that is underway. And then I will be at every board meeting now because I am pushing the board to hear about what we are doing. So once a month, we will be making student assignment at a glance, which is a synopsis of what our committees have done over the month. So I made the first one, and the consecutive ones will be featuring some people like you in them. So I'm writing the script of it. So this next month, we're filming them next week, no? Next April 2nd, yay. And that will talk about what we did this month. So we are developing guiding principles. Guiding principles will kind of be our roadmap to how we get to recommendations. Here are some of the guiding principles we're considering, or here are the ones that we voted on, which brings me to the next thing. And so you guys are the last guiding principles group this month. And then Monday we're gonna do a virtual meeting to whittle down, because there's gonna be 30 of them, because every group in every committee has developed some kind of guiding principle. There are a lot of similarities, so I may push on pushing some of those together, but there is a process called max difference. What's the maximum survey or item, and then where's the one that's the most different, and it kind of pits it against each other, and then you have to rank or choose or something like that. Our assessment team has helped me figure this out. That's not my area. And so we'll do that after every month. So you guys, your window will be tight because you guys are always the last one, and then the next day there will be a little virtual one. So that's March, April, and May. We'll do that just so we can get to what are our guiding principles. And just again know that those will become kind of how we get to recommendations. So a lot coming in the next few months. So again, the next 3 months, the goal is to develop 2 to 3 guiding principles for each of buildings, boundaries, programs, okay? So we talked a little bit in February about what a guiding principle is. And there's a few steps on how to get there. So you're gonna go back, because we're talking about buildings. I think we did this in October. So you're gonna go back into your Google Drive and look at all the stuff y'all talked about in October. Or if you got we'll get you a Google Drive. You got your worksheets are in. This is why we do worksheets, because we ain't gonna remember what we talked about like 5 months ago. And to look back at the package, just to say like, what were we talking about when we talked about building? So you guys all had a question. You guys did some thinking and some brainstorming. We captured all that in those worksheets, so you'll go back and look at that and just brainstorm. Like, what were the big things that came up for you guys around buildings? We have chart paper. Kayla would really love it if you use her chart paper. She really went to the ends of the earth to get it for you, to use your chart paper if you're writing kind of people. I would just type it, but you know, to each his own. So you just dump all the stuff. Like, what did we talk about when as it relates to buildings? You're gonna kind of rank them, like which one of these seems the most important to our big question, which I'll show you. And then in order to develop that guiding principle, it has to be the 3 A's. It has to be action oriented, it needs to align with the SAP vision, and it has to be adaptable. So a guiding principle cannot be turn Tucker into an IB program. That's action oriented. It does not align with our vision because that's super specific, and it's not adaptable because you're only talking about Tucker, right? And so there's some examples in your worksheets and we'll come around and help massage as you're getting close to one. If I, say, okay, I think we're on the right track, or I'm like, let's tell me how that meets the 3 A's, right? So that's what we'll do. For the remainder of today. So we did in February, we did an example, like a really good one, as we used the example of the disconnect to reconnect, which is the cell phone policy. And we did an example that a good guiding principle would be there should be options available to teachers to help them ensure that cell phones do not disrupt class. A challenging one would be the district should make all students put cell phones in safe lockers before each class. That's way too specific. And what if we can't afford a safe locker? Like, there are options on where to put a cell phone. It doesn't have to specifically be a locker, right? There's financial implications to that. So you want to make sure it's broad enough, because again, we're going to use it to develop recommendations. So you want it broad enough that we have some wiggle room to develop what a recommendation is. I want to know what the problem's addressing, how it connects to the SAP vision. And then our miracles framework. So someone at the meeting in February was like, what are miracles? Good question, I didn't tell y'all. So Dr. Horton, miracles is kind of our internal continuous improvement plan. It aligns to our strategic plan. Every month, every director or above has to come in front of Dr. Horton and cabinet and report on how we are aligning the work we're doing to the miracles framework. And I'll let him explain what that is, if the sound works. We might be out of sound? Just kidding, the sound doesn't like us. We can go to that one. I'll share what it is. So we have to represent it all the time. Please hold. So miracles is an acronym, and each letter stands for something. So M is motion towards equity, I is improved instructional core, R is relevant and rigorous course of study, A is attract and retain high quality staff, C, commitment to accountability, L, learning environments that support student success, E, establish expected targets driven by results, and then S is sound fiscal stewardship. So in the beginning of the year, every department has to create goals based on their work and connect it to a miracle tenet. So obviously, we're a tenet M. Student assignment is definitely tenet M. And so we create our goals, SMART goals, and then we present each month on what we have done the past 30 days to reach that goal and what is our future 30 days gonna look like. And then if you meet a goal area, you celebrate. And so we wanna make sure that the work that we're doing is both connected. Obviously, our SAP vision I created with him and the board, so that is connected to our strategic vision, but we wanna make sure that our work is as well. So just so we're not too far off the end of the rails, when we start developing that guiding principle, you are gonna just put what letter that connects to from our miracles framework. That make sense? Yes. Great. All right, so as you guys are starting to brainstorm and starting to develop these guiding principles, the question we're trying to answer, is what do we need to consider when determining the right sizing for our district? Right sizing air quotes because that can mean a lot of things depending on what direction we go, right? Just remember to keep in mind that we have 20,000 open seats, we have 10,000 less students, birth rate projections are declining, and unless somehow we get kids to come back here, not sure how drastically those numbers are gonna change, right? So that means we have to figure out, if you will, the number of buildings we really need in this district to operate. I think another thing to consider and think about is it's really, really expensive to run a building whether kids are in it or not, right? And so running a building with 100% kids is great because your child cost per student is lower because you have more kids because the fixed costs are the fixed costs. If you're running it over here, that child, the cost per child is higher because you have less kids that you're using that money for, if that makes sense. So that is a financial stressor for the district as well as transportation because we have 900 buses. We are not operating 900 buses because we do not have 900 drivers. Learned that the other day. I was like, 900 buses is crazy. But we don't have that many. We can't find 900 drivers. Like they don't exist at the moment. So if we thinking about like physically where our buildings are, like the closer we can get them to neighborhoods, that may mean the less buses routes that we may need to transport kids all over the district. So things to consider. The other thing, and I forgot to tell this last week, in the miracles section of your worksheet, I asked Dr. Horton to give me things that the community has been telling him and to connect it to one of the miracles tenants because he goes around and does HPRI visits at schools and he did miracles visits in the community his first year. And so there are things that people have told him. Know that these are not like, go and do this. This is just what he's heard. So you'll see under one of the miracles tenants, families want more school choice options. We know that. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what we have to do, right, in our pay, but just something to consider when we think about triangulating data. We do need to take into consideration what families and communities are asking for too, okay? So that's in your worksheet though, in your Google Drive. Yes?
Sorry.
No, go.
So we think about, look at the fact that our district is shrinking, like it has shrunk and it is shrinking. And so when we, let's say, consolidate or rearrange, realign our buildings and programs, how does that impact staff? Like we know that we have buildings that are empty so that we can fill it up. That's gonna be better for our, like you said,
Yeah.
facility ratio. Are we overstaffed or?
That's a great
is the staff
question.
appropriate to the number of kids that we have regardless of facility?
That's a good question. So think about it this way. Whether the kindergarten class has 8 kids or 28, it still has a teacher. So right now, we don't necessarily have teachers with no children. We just have teachers with very low ratios in some schools. And that's where it gets interesting. So we are, I think in that sense, yes, possibly overstaffed because those other kids, them 6 kids could be in 6 different schools and we wouldn't need no teachers in this building at all, right? And so that's where it gets a little wonky. Like we went into school and we were like, oh, you got like 8 kids. That's wonderful for the children. Financially, like that might be a little tricky for the district, right? Especially when the same teacher getting paid the same money is over here, they got 28. There's some things to grapple with there. And not all of our teacher vacancies are filled either. So it may not necessarily mean that we're just getting rid of a bunch of teachers. It may mean that we're just right sizing for what we actually need and we may have less vacancies. But that's a HR, like I don't fully know, that's just Sarita's like brainchild.
Have there been any studies conducted to determine like the long-term impact of artificial intelligence as it relates to staffing and teaching going forward? Because that could also have an impact.
It could. I'm gonna say that's a non-purpose of SAP. I don't know, not yet. I know that, but I do know Gwinnett just opened up an AI high school. I wanna go visit it because I just wanna know what they're doing. Like that sounds really dope. They just opened up a like programmatic AI high school to teach kids to get into the AI field, which is really, really smart because it's coming, whether we want it to or not. It's coming. All right, so we're gonna move some tables. Yes, love.
Quick question.
Yep.
So the schools that have low seats, or I guess
Enrollment.
not a lot of low enrollment, that's the word.
Is it overall like all of the grades, or are you just seeing it in spots of grades, or is it?
It's, so you'll see a little, so there, when we did the projection or the boundaries, SAP committee, there was, you'll see it based on, you can see it based on area, but then you can also see it based on grade band. So your K-5 grade band is where we're gonna start to see the shrinkage, because it's birth rate data. So those are the younger kids. And then you'll see, right now our high school and middle school is booming, but know that they're graduating, right? And those same numbers eventually have to matriculate up. All right, so I'm gonna put you four in a group together. Unless you, are you in a, what group you in?
She's in 4.
Oh, okay,
It's just she probably couldn't see,
gotcha.
but I saw her.
All right, let's get to work. We're gonna brainstorm first and then the AAAs. And if you don't have, yes, Wi-Fi, and you're gonna definitely need your worksheets. So if you don't, if you guys have a computer over here, if not, we'll get you your worksheet. principles. So I came around to each of your tables. Great job pulling the information from October, theming it up, and then creating a guiding principle that meets those 3 A's. Uh-oh, I'm touching things. Where did my 3 A's go? Wrong way? All right, who's sharing first? Tell me I believe everybody at least has 2. Por favor.
Please hold, please hold, please hold.
Please hold for the mic.
So we will share with you guys our first guiding,
I'm sorry. You know, it's the drill.
yes, our first guiding principle around buildings. So we believe that buildings should be designed to be future ready, ensuring they can adapt to emerging technologies and prepare students for opportunities, even those currently unknown. This requires incorporating cutting-edge tools that broaden students' horizons and connects them to global possibilities. What are we addressing? We are addressing the lack of adaptability in our current buildings, preparing students for an uncertain future job market, limited exposure to new technologies, and a narrowed perspective and lack of global awareness. And then the Miracles connection is learning environments that support student success.
All right. Got some head nods over here on that one. Very nice, very nice. That was one hearty guiding principle. We got all right, great job. Who's next? Come on, Voluntold.
Oh, for real?
Kayla's there.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little honest. We got a little carried away in what we talked about in October. And we
That's
didn't
okay.
realize that it was kind of not building related. But we
Pause on that real quick. There's going to be a lot of intertwining of building and programs, so
Okay,
it's
okay,
okay.
okay.
Because we'll get to the
that's
programs,
what-
but
yeah, that's
yep.
kind of what we did.
That's fine.
So we understood the assignment, and we regrouped. So one of the first things we wanted to talk about kind of leads into what they were speaking about. We just want to make sure that buildings have equitable technology and equipment, no matter where they are in the county.
Okay.
So we kind of wanted to start with what are we addressing? Like we have old buildings that have old technology, old equipment, and those are the things that we kind of need to start really looking at to see what are the needs of these schools, and based on the needs, is this a school that even needs to be still for the same purpose? Maybe it needs to be reimagined for something else. Where does its strong points? It may have a really great kitchen and can be used in a culinary aspect.
arts, right.
So
Gotcha.
those are the kind of things we need to look at. And for that one, we use the learning environments that support student success, Miracle.
Okay.
Then our next guiding principle is just to make sure that communities are being fully served because of the decrease in population. We have a lot of communities that have older populations. They are full of retirees, and they are no longer having young children there. So we need to look at those communities and see, first of all, who's there still. Can we shift these students around? What can the schools be reimagined, or can we send people maybe from some of the overcrowded schools? Can we readjust some things so that they can maybe still be served within that community? And the miracle we used for that was the sound fiscal stewardship.
Nice. Great. Thank you. Nice. We're going to move up to the front.
All right, so I'll just go over one because our other sort of in between there. So our guiding principle says, to be recognized as a technical school, the program must operate in a dedicated building, offer a minimum amount of programs, and maintain a sufficient level of occupancy. What are we addressing? Underutilization and overcrowding of buildings, and ensuring resources are used effectively and space is being maximized. The SAP vision, using data to reimagine buildings, and then the DCSD Miracle, we have motion towards equity and through an improved instructional core. And just to kind of expand on that, we were talking about DeKalb North DeKalb South, and Warren Tech. So Warren Tech has its own school, has 66, I think was what we just saw, kids in it. DeKalb North is housed at Cross Keys. I know Cross Keys is moving, but they're housed at Cross Keys. Cross Keys is already overcrowded. And then we have DeKalb or Tech South, has its own building, state-of-the-art things. Not saying that we necessarily keep that either. Maybe there's a central one, but simply put, just combine them all and make sure that there are like real requirements to be considered a tech school.
Nice. Thank you, thank you. All right, last but not least.
Thank you. Okay, so our guiding principle, we went to strategically combining buildings in proximal boundary lines, which significantly demonstrates low enrollment to maximize resources and reduce financial strain. So basically, that was just a big nutshell of saying you have two schools, they have low enrollment, you either move one to the other, or actually you combine them into two. Like she said, we made it very broad because the combining of buildings doesn't necessarily mean you have to move one into the other. It may be actually having one new building that brings the two together, which will make them feel as though they're going to a new school, make them feel like they're not leaving one school, having to go to another school. It can centralize it on the boundary lines, allowing them both to feel like they have the same amount commute. And so mentally it feels as though it's something new, something brand new, and something different. You can maximize reduce financial strain by closing down the two buildings that had low enrollment. Even though you're going to pour into one building, it's actually going to, in the long run, be more financial or fiscal responsible. And what are we addressing? We're addressing being fiscal responsible and maximizing resources. When I say maximizing resources, you have resources from one school, resources from another school, you're combining them. It should maximize the resources in that one school. SAP vision connection, action-oriented, strategically combining buildings, and also using data. The schools that have low enrollment will be combined to reduce the financial strain. The miracles, the motion towards equity, because we're developing and aligning programs, options, and resources. Sound fiscal stewardship, fiscally responsible since we are combining buildings. And then the other one that we had, are we doing just one? Or?
You can do the second.
Okay. The second one is there should be a streamlined process that encourages magnet and specialty school participation in sports and or extracurricular activities at the home school to foster a sense of community and improve physical health and those for those scholars. So basically, when they go to the specialty schools, maybe even the charter, maybe even the magnet, that they are allowed to participate in their community school sports and extracurricular activities. So what are we addressing? The lack of opportunities and lack of connectivity within the neighborhood kids. The SAP vision, as we're reimagining programs. The programs is not just for, the schools. We're actually building up the community. The miracles that we use was the motion towards equity, develop a supportive and inclusive school culture, and it plays a significant role in improving student academic and social outcomes.
Wonderful, wonderful. You guys did a pretty good job of this one. So with your 2, 4, 7 additional guiding principles, we probably have a total of about 35 with all the committees. And so I'll talk to you about how we'll kind of get down to a top 3 to 5 of those, right? Because there is a lot of overlap, which is interesting. One of the, I think a board member or community member asked, they're like, so the caterer's reporter actually asked about some stuff for SAP, and he asked are the committees like drastically different, like giving you drastically different answers for everything? Not really. And y'all ain't even really met each other like that, right? Like y'all don't, like, unless y'all going to watch everybody else's committee, I doubt that, okay. Like the stuff coming out is not really drastically different, which is really cool, because I think what that shares is that, one, people got on this committee for similar reasons, and you guys saw similar issues and want to address similar issues, which is really cool, given that, because there's this whole narrative, like the North and the South. The stuff coming out is not drastically different, which is really dope. So that's exciting. And you'll get to see some of that soon. I am trying to get as much data for you guys as possible. As I get stuff, I'm putting them inside of your data folders. You'll see folders in there now called buildings, boundaries, programs, and maybe other. So as I get stuff that you've asked for that is finally coming out the pipeline, I'll be putting that stuff in there. It'll become more relevant in the fall, but just know, like, as of now, I'm starting to put it in there. I had a meeting with our operations team today, and David Yoke, who came and presented about boundaries, is attempting to create a mapping tool that he's calling DeKalb County School Atlas, where we can then create maps, basically. So there will be filters. So you could say, I want to see a map with reduced transportation, with magnet schools, and with programs, and you get to play around with the map. I didn't know he was doing that. God bless his heart. I was like, okay, because I was like, here's all the maps I want. He was like, yeah, I'm creating a tool. Okay, cool. And whatever the map can, so we'll be trying to play around with it a little bit in the summer. I'll be looking at your worksheets. It's like, oh, they asked for a school with only K-8 school or K-12 schools. What would that look like? And see if, like, I'm gonna play around and try to break it a little bit so I can nudge him to fix it. And then hopefully we'll be ready to play with it in the fall. So that is coming, which is exciting. There was one of the teams looked at like a stadium question when we did buildings. There is a stadium audit coming. So our athletics department did an audit. I believe it's coming out. I don't really know much about it besides it's coming. So I will be working with them to get that audit into our document. So as we look around the building piece, we can look at a little bit about what that audit says. I know that they looked at the stadiums and then all of our high school and middle schools from my understanding. So we'll see what comes out of that audit. So work we don't have to do, but that we can consider in the process. I'm trying to think of other things that I'm working to get. There's also a new, I'm gonna forget what it's called, like building assessment, facilities assessment, FCI or something like that. That's currently in our master facility plan. They're doing a new one this year. So when that comes out, that'll give like the facilities a score essentially. So that'll be helpful to look at. So if we're like, hey, let's, to your point, like if we decide we're combining two buildings and that facility score is 2 and this one 3, maybe we consider a new, right? And so that kind of stuff will help us with kind of that balancing as we're looking at buildings. So that is coming. So I don't go to church, but I went one day since I've been in Georgia, because I mean, right, Georgia. And this was on the screen. I was supposed to be here. So to reimagine means to rethink or revise something in a new and creative way, often breaking away from traditional perspectives, assumptions, or limitations. It involves seeing possibilities, that were previously overlooked and approaching an idea, concept, or situation with a fresh mindset. And I looked up and I said, well, looky there. I guess I'm supposed to be here this Sunday and possibly in Georgia doing this work. Look at that. And it's just really cool because, again, like, I feel like it's not a secret that we need to be doing this, right? Like, it's just how we do it. So that was pretty exciting. So I was like, oh, let me share that with the people. Okay, so timeline stuff. So we've been working. So for the rest of this year, again, we'll be doing our guiding principles. You guys completed the March part. And then the virtual kind of vote, if you will, is going to happen on Monday. Typically, it'll be the next day for y'all, that Thursday, right? Because I then have to film the new video the week after that about what we discussed. So your timeline's a little tight these next 3 months, just to make sure you just come in to vote for those, because whatever we vote on in that process will become our guiding principles. And again, there's going to be like 35, because every committee has multiple groups and they are developing guiding principles, right? So make sure it's going to be online, so it'll be virtual. You don't have to physically come anywhere for those. So you'll have 3 of those throughout the month. In April, we're going to kind of, again, remove inactive members, start onboarding some new ones. That's coming up. I'm developing something called a Summer Institute where we take all this stuff we've been doing all year and start like looking at what the possibilities are. Like, cool, if we decide, you know, we need a centralized tech school, where would that be? What building will we look at? And right, so we're gonna just start looking at the possibilities. So that will include some of you guys from committees, but it's also gonna heavily include people that have to do the work at the DeKalb. Because I also, similarly to how I don't want community members to be surprised, I also don't want them to be surprised, like, hey, by the way, here's all this work that SAP is handing off to you, and they haven't been involved in the process. So we have a bunch of people from different divisions that will make up that committee internally, and then we want some SAP people in there too. So if you know, are off all summer, unlike us, you know, feel free to join us. It'll be once a week, and we're going to dive into all the stuff that you guys have been doing. That's where those worksheets become important, because those are the kind of tools we'll be using to share the information with that team. And then after May, we'll have a little bit of a summer break. I mean, we'll be working, but you guys will have a little bit of a summer break. We don't meet throughout the summer.
You said no party?
Oh, you just gonna work us and not throw us up.
Oh, see, because we ain't done yet. So, like, when we get done. So, 10th grade graduation. Oh, yeah, let me think about that. I'm going to put you on the committee. Help me out. Again, over the summer, we'll be doing that institute, but we'll be onboarding new members, and then we'll pick back up in September, because August is crazy because school starts, so we'll pick back up in September, probably after Labor Day. The other thing I heard from committee members is, I want to know what Central's doing, and I want to know what Southeast is doing. Great, we're going to all come together in the fall. So there will be no more separate committees in the fall. We'll all come together, but because we're coming together, I'm going to ask to see you more often. I'm going to ask to see you twice a month. One will be virtual, one will be in person. That's the concession. Right? One will be virtual, one will be in person. So we'll be able to do breakouts and stuff like that. But I'm gonna ask for, because it's about to get real in the fall. So I'm gonna need your attention just a little bit more. But we'll do one virtual, one in person. And I'm trying to figure out the in-person one. So I think we'll still bounce, the in-person one, so they can come to everybody else's spaces. How's that sound? That's okay? Great. Great, great, great. That's just a glossary. Yay, next meetings. I think I said all this.
Yeah.
So Kayla is wonderful and got, what's that? Nope. Remind, and we're gonna start sending text messages to remind people to come to their meetings. And so if you see a text message from Remind, you have to join it. If you don't have the app, you have to download it. And then we could just keep up with you via text message as well. So look out for that. That was another update that I forgot to put on the slide. Oh, those are the guiding principle dates. I said it already. Be looking out, it's coming. You'll get a text message now, so it's fine. Yay, yes.
Can we refer to committee?
You can. You can.
So who do we send it to?
Just send them to the SAP email. We have a running list. Yep, so yes, if there are people that you like always go and talk to and they like, tell me what happened at SAP, yeah, we want them. So make sure they give us their information. Board members are referring people to us as well. And then we'll be using the list that people originally apply for through the application, and be looking at that too, to fill up our seats. Yes?
When we first started this, you said there's gonna be some long-term things and there's gonna be some immediate issues. And you were saying that you may pull some people for those immediate issues. Have there been any immediate issues?
So Idlewood kind of came out of left field for me, so I didn't get to pull anybody for that one. The only, that was kind of one of those immediate things. I don't know of any that they're talking about for next year yet, but what I did ask operations, I was like, can we take the summer, and if there is anything that y'all need to move, shift, or build because of eSplosh, please let me know, because I would like to schedule quarterly conversations with those communities that we can just set up, right? And so I do know that Dresden is getting a renovation, and there is some impact possibly on Dorville United and Cary Reynolds, which is in a Nancy Creek building. Learned some things through some visits. So we may get pulled for some of those conversations because It has been told to some of those communities that where they're going and where they could be going. That was prior to us, and we may have to come in and say, let's talk about it, right? So that may be one for next year that we may look at. But great question. You got a face, what? Okay. All right, thank you for doing the exit ticket. I appreciate you guys. See you in April. Oh, I'll see you online on the 31st. On Monday, see you online.